Check the audio. Testing. Testing. All right. So hey guys, we're gonna be picking up where we left off yesterday. We officially got the workbench lowered. We're sitting at about 34.5 inches. It's just about flush with my other workbenches inside of the shop. But now the next thing we need to tackle is the table saw. As you can see, it's extremely higher. I think we're sitting about 2 3/4 over the actual outfeet table. So what we're gonna do to adjust that, well, we're going to do two things, actually. First thing we're going to do is we're going to be building some new wings for the table saw. This one's going to hold a router table. This is just going to be a wooden extension instead of this metal plate. That's going to allow me to add a slider to my table saw later. But then we're going to be building a cabinet for the underneath side to, one, make it more mobile. Because this table saw comes with, I think, one pivoting wheel. And the other two are kind of stationary, so you kind of got to like teeter-totter it back and forth to move it. So we're going to add some better wheels, overall storage and everything else to this. And this table saw doesn't have any type of support for this wing over here. So when I build my underneath cabinet and my router table into this wing, it's also going to be able to help support this side of the table saw. Keeps everything locked together and accurate for longer, I think. So we're going to delve into that process. The first thing I need to do is start breaking down plywood.
You about to build?
Yeah. Again, one of the reasons why I love using my planer as an end feed. I'm completely hands-free and I have a full sheet of plywood here. I can stand pretty much right about here and just guide the sheet up against my fence as I feed it through the saw. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining in. Let me cut on the vacuum. That should be the only rip that I plan to do on the table saw until I actually get it lowered. This piece right here is 27 inches. The overall table saw is 27 inches wide. I think the overall width is about 54 inches. So we're going to cut this one to 54 and a half. And then the leftover piece is actually enough to do both inserts. So that's the one rip I need. I do need some side panels. I might go ahead and rip another piece at 27. So that way I already have side panels that are wide enough before I start taking apart my table saw. I do have my job site table saw, but the max capacity on that one is 24 inches. So I'd probably rather rip my 27s before I start taking apart my fence and I have to use my smaller table saw. Just my thought process anyway. But what else? We're also going to be doing after breaking down the plywood, the router table, and this wing insert. I have some walnut, like I guess like a 2x2, or it's about 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches. I'm going to use this to kind of edge band the router table. So we're also going to rip this down, join it, and plane it, and then make all of my face framing for all of my router tables and everything else. So actually, let me rip my other sheet to 27. How wide is that other piece over here? I might not need the full sheet. Okay, no, that's undersized. See, I'm gonna rip my other sheet to 27. So that way I don't need the larger table saw for anything else. Everything else can be done on my smaller table saw. I will say with the outfeed table being so much lower than the than the table saw itself, it got a little bit more of a pain in the ass to push all the way through. So I'm actually going to do is leave these sheets kind of already sitting here to help raise up the overall height of the outfeed table. All right, let me bring over one more sheet and we'll rip that one too. And then from there, it'll be miter saw, table saw, and planer and jointer. I'm gonna leave the vacuum running, so I don't have to go up on there. That just leads me to that. So one thing I can't recommend enough, if you guys have a DW 735, I'll say put it on a cart and make the cart when the head is all the way lowered about in line with whatever table saw or tools you have laying around your shop. Because the head has the ability to raise and lower 6 inches. Sorry. Catch my breath for a second. Because the head has the ability to raise 6 inches, let's say your table saw is at 33 inches or 37 inches. If that is lowest is at 37, you can raise it up and use it for infeed or outfeed for table saw, my drill press, bandsaw, etc. So I really do love the planer. Comes out awesome and definitely serves its purpose. So after I actually lower the table saw, I will need to lower the planer cart. Again, when I started this process, I was like, oh, first thing I need to lower the bench. Then I was like, oh, I gotta lower the table saw. Oh, the planer has to get lowered too. But overall, it's gonna be a lot better for me. Because again, if the camera probably doesn't tell you guys, I'll show it. I'm extremely tall. I'm like 7'5". Oh look, tall guy 6. That's even funnier. Yeah, I'm extremely tall. So my workbench was originally sitting at about 37 inches. I dropped this one here down to 34.5. So the table saw is next. This is going to drop down to about 34 5/8, give or take. It's going to have leveling feet and better wheels on it, so it'll be more mobile inside of the shop. The new insert wings are going to be pretty nice. So give me a large router table I can add dust collection and everything else into. And on this side, I saw another YouTuber, I think his name was Carpentact. He made a slider that's actually a folding wing on the side of your table saw. So I want to add that over here. But again, what this video is going to be about is milling up the wood for the face frame, breaking down this plywood for the base, the inserts, and I'll probably stop the video there and do the rest of this in the actual video. So I do want to be able to actually put out one for the channel. So I don't want to do all of this on the live stream. The goal of this video was to kind of get all the milling done, get stuff cut to size, probably talk through my planning and sizing for these. So let me slide these two pieces out the way, and then we're going to rip down the pieces of wall. Actually, no, the walnut's going to go to the joiner, planer, then table saw. Excuse me. And then we'll start cutting down this plywood to size for the base and my insert pieces. So I can't really size that until I know how thick my walnut's going to be. Whew. And I'll just leave these two on the bench, but I'll put it about in the middle of the table saw for when I start ripping this. And then you guys probably can come back here so y'all can see. So we're going to hit the joiner, probably the table saw, then planer is what I'm thinking. Also, I want to say thank you to everybody who's hanging in here with me right now. This was kind of impromptu the last 2 days. If you guys won't hear yesterday, essentially I have a project where I'm about to build about 10 interior doors. So this is all inspired by me wanting to upgrade my router table, and again, me being extremely tall. So I was like, if I'm gonna upgrade my router table, I'm also building into my table saw. If I take the time to build the router table into the table saw, I might as well build a base for the table saw, because I hate these little paddle wheels. Again, there's only one on this side and two stationary over here, so it's a pain in the ass to adjust, especially when I have the dados for my tracks here. So it's a pain in the ass to move the table saw back and forward to get it lined up. So I said, hey, if I'm gonna build the router table, I gotta build a base for the table saw. If I build a base for the table saw is really too tall for me. I might as well make it shorter. So if I make this shorter, gotta make the bench shorter. But again, I will say I am enjoying it. This bench now is the same height as those two. These still have the height adjustments, so they still can raise and lower to any height. They can still match the height of my drill press and everything else for outfeed. So it makes everything a little bit more usable for me. So I'm going to enjoy the process. I mean, the use of the tools, not so much the state of getting there. Because then my next thing is the miter saw used to sit and play with the table saw, so I can actually hang and feed plywood through the table saw, and I used to be able to rest on the miter saw. So if I'm cross cutting really long boards, I used to be able to use the miter saw as kind of like a outfeed. But now that the table saw is going to get shorter, do I have to shrink the miter saw too? Which just takes away my cabinet space down here. And right now it's just enough room for my Festool dust extractor and the container. The container could go away, and I can always shorten this by another 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and make everything line up again. I do want to put bigger wheels on it. So it's just, this started as a domino effect, if you guys can't hear my voice. It started off as a simple, oh, just gonna make a better router table before I built these doors, to now I'm kind of reworking a good portion of the shop. But it's going to make the functionality and the flow for this next project. It's going to allow me to pretty much do these doors better, more organized, I have a little bit more space. I'll be more comfortable using all my tools. Cut the light on. One thing I do want to do though, probably won't happen before these doors, but I want to mount my dust collector because I have the wind dust collector sitting in the back. I want to mount it up on this wall and run some kind of ducting. So I hate having to pull my planer and stuff back here to this room whenever I want to use it. Actually, let me move the planer out of the way. And at the very least, I did just order some longer hose. Because my biggest issue is like whenever I use any one of these tools, I gotta practically bring them all the way back here to this room. And then where the dust collector is currently, it's not even where I want it to stay at. I want that up on this wall and up out the way. Probably just a simple branch line that comes and drops right here to the table saw, which will feed the table saw and the router table. Probably gonna do some type of overarm dust collection. Maybe a branch over to the bandsaw and drill press, which will only use like a 2-inch, 2.5-inch line, but I'll probably branch it off to 2. So any air loss, I think it'll still do more than fine with that kind of run because it'll only be feeding just that. And then the same for the miter saw. Instead of using my smaller dust extractor, I'll probably split the 2 ports on the Makita to 2 2.5-inch ports. Then I probably can run the dust extractor for that too. So eventually, I think that's after I finish these doors, that's gonna be my next shop upgrade because I'm getting stuff more organized, but I hate having to clean up all the dust afterwards. So best way to keep it clean is if I have decent dust extraction. And I'm trying to think where I want to put you guys. Let's see, about right here. You can't see the whole joint here. And we might just leave you guys right here. Also, another shameless plug to my channel. If you guys haven't seen the video where I built this mobile base for the joiner, it's actually meant to be extremely low profile. I think the joiner itself is probably about a 3/4 to about an inch higher than what it normally would be because of how I built the mobile base. It's almost as nice as the metal low profile ones you can get, but again, maybe just some simple 2x4s, and it's about how I built it, which keeps everything low profile. The wheels are actually mounted underneath of a 2x4 that's sitting on top of the cradle. Anyway, you guys will see that video. Definitely suggest checking it out. Very important though that whenever you use it, that you lock down your wheels so it's not sliding around on you. I only ever really lock down 2 unless I'm running a really big piece through. I will say I am a little hesitant. I just tore the bag on my dust collector, so I have a regular black trash bag on it. I don't know if that's going to leak, but I don't have much milling to do, so it should get me through this process. There's only 2 of these. Let's see what she does. Oh, well, we have success. This camera's not even gonna do it justice. I just love the look of walnut. Let's join the other two faces on the other one. All right. Now we have perfect 90-degree corners. The next thing we're gonna do is resaw it and make. I can get 3 pieces out of each one of these. Then we'll run them through the planer, and this will end up being the edge banding or the face frame for my router table insert. And the reason why I don't want to cut the plywood to the actual size is because I don't know what size it needs to be until I know what size my face frames are. So, you know, kind of chicken and egg right there. So let's go ahead and resaw these pieces now. Let's see what we're working with as far as material. I do typically like to be able to go end for end instead of going full depth of cut, strictly because it gives you a better result. So I probably should rip this side and make sure that's straight, and then I can resaw them. And we're working with 2 7/16 and 2 3/8. I want to be able to get 3. So I'll resaw them in this direction. But I need to rip that side off. Okay. So the next step is to set up the table saw and take a couple rips. The first rip will be to make this side parallel with this one. And what this is going to do is when I go through the actual resawing process, because I'm going to be slicing them this way in the slices. If this side and this side are not parallel, if I run the blade through this way, then flip it over like this, my blade is not going to be perpendicular inside of the piece. So you want to be working with 2 parallel sides if you're going to be flipping end for end. And you could, raise your blade up all the way and go that route, or do like 2 or 3 passes, but then you're moving your fence constantly. You're going to do 3/4, raise the blade, keep ripping. Instead of doing all of that, I'd rather set the blade to about half the thickness, go end for end, and I know I'm going to get a nice straight blade cut. And what is 2 and 3? Let's rip these first, and then I'll see what my overall thickness will be. I know it's going to be more than ½ inch. If I can get at least 5/8, 3/4, I'll be happy, because I need 27, 27, and a 24. I'm not going to put walnut on this edge right here because you won't see it. The whole goal of it is that my insert, so I sit above my metal rails, and I don't want you to see plywood, on the outside. So I'm going to cover it with the walnut. And again, where it butts up to the stainless steel, that doesn't matter. So we're only going to be covering 3 sides. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining in. I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully you're excited to see some awesome woodworking and carpentry ingenuity. And hopefully I can deliver that for you. And again, what I just said about the full depth of cut, that really only applies when you're burying the blade all the way inside of the piece. In this case, I'm just going to be skimming the edge, so I'm not too worried about doing a full depth of cut here. Realistically, I probably should just send this through the planer just to get this side perfectly in parallel instead of relying on the table saw to do a full depth of cut. But again, this is for face framing for a router table insert on my table saw, and it's going to be sent through the planer anyway. So let's not overthink it, and let's go ahead and do the process. I just wanted to make sure I explain to you guys what we're doing, why we're doing it, and hopefully make it look cool. Can't really snap too well. Kind of cut my finger the other day. Uncarpentry related, by the way. It's carpentry related. I don't make mistakes. Oh, I need to push that plywood forward just a little bit so my fence can slide. There we go. And we're going to 2 3/8. I see that's to the inside of the blade. Actually, let me just. Yeah, see the inside of the blade. So 2 3/8 heavy. good example. I just ran that through. I didn't take off enough. Still down here, still some of the roughs on. So again, hypothetically, I don't have my, square. I actually need my 90-degree square, my machinist square. But I guarantee that this, well, because the blade didn't hit it, I know it is. It's ever so slightly, like from here to here, it's smaller than from here to here. Because my blade is at 90 degrees. I said the 2 3/8, but this didn't get cut. So this is like if I was running it through the planer, all that would have got shaved. This didn't. So I need to cut it smaller than 2 3/8 if I want this side to be perfectly parallel to this side and not have it cocked out any. So I'm gonna go move the fence over just a smidge and take another run at it. But I think this piece was like 2.5, so I probably can run that how it is. And then we'll scooch the blade over just a little bit. That's perfect. And now what that has given me is I have two sides that are parallel and 90 degrees to this face. This face is always going up against my fence. So that's always going to be the same reference. But now when I flip it over and go end for end, I'm also keeping the same 90-degree reference to my blade, to my fence, giving me a better resaw. And now I just need to divide this up to roughly 3 even pieces while accounting for the girth of my blade, which is the 1/8 inch. So we'll say 1/4 inch. We have 2 7, and we have 2 3. So minus 1/4, we'll say 2 1/8. So 2 1/8 divided by 3. 2 1/4 would be 3/4 and 3/4 and 3/4. 2 1/8 is like 5. It's like 5/8 heavy, right? Because that leaves me with 2/8, 7/8. So it's like 11/16. So if I set my blade to 11/16, I should be able to get 3 semi-even pieces that if I then run them through the planer, I should end up with nothing less than 5/8. And if I resaw this right, I shouldn't need to take them through the planer. So what the goal is now is to lower the blade to about half the height of the overall material. Because again, no need to overwork the blade, no need to build up extra heat or have the blade struggle as it makes this cut, because we're going to be flipping it over while we resaw it. And then we want to set this to 11/16, just a fuzz under. All right. Hopefully my math is right. I think all things considered, that's not a bad resaw. You don't have it coming to like a large belly in the middle because your blade is coming in at different angles. Again, that's why you want to make sure that this side is nice and flat. And then you can kind of work the rest of the pieces off of that. Now the only thing left to see now is if when I do this 2 more passes, is the last piece smaller than the first 2. Math. I think I'm off by a 16th. It's only about a 16th under the first one, so I'll probably adjust the fence just a little bit. Yeah, somewhere I did math wrong. How wide is this one? That one's really thin. That's only 1/2 inch. So if now 11/16, it's probably 5/8. Because that would give me 3. And again, I really only need 3. This is only going to be 10 inches. So then I only need 2 for this side. So I just need to make sure I can get 3 out of 1. And 5/8 is close enough to be planed down and equal out. This should just be an extra piece of walnuts. So I ended up with 2 black sheep. What I'm probably gonna do, so I only need 2 for this side. Let's just make this side narrower. I don't want to plane all this down to 1/2 inch. I'm just gonna plane all this down to uniformity. Then plane this down to uniformity. Use this for this side. Use this one for that side. So let's head over to the planer and get all these uniform. And then we'll start breaking down some of the plywood and get that sized. We'll take some measurements of the table. I think the table again is 27, like 27, like a 27 heavy. It's not even a 16th, so like a 32nd. So 27 this way. This one's only going to be 10 inches. That one's going to be, I think, 25. And I need to be able to subtract whatever these finish out as from the overall width and everything else. Then I can size my plywood. I cut these to 27, which is the overall width. These are going to get smaller by the thickness of this material. Then I can cut the base. And then once I have all these parts cut, I'm probably going to stop the live stream, start recording for the actual video. But then I'll start probably breaking down this table saw and everything else. But what I would do before I do that, I'll show you guys if you haven't seen it. I recently built a Polk style cradle for my job site table saw. So when I break down this table saw, I'm going to have a functioning table saw inside of the shop. So I'll probably bring that inside, show you guys what that looks like before I end the stream, because YouTube hasn't seen any of that, and YouTube won't be seeing any of this for probably quite a while. I might try to pop up and do a few live streams showing like the process, but I will have to try to show you guys the cradle as well. So let me move you guys back here to the back. We're going to unplug the joiner, plug up the planer, get everything milled down. But I think I'm going to take a quick cigarette break. And we're up to 33 people in here. I greatly appreciate you guys again for hanging out here on the stream. If you guys don't know what's going on, you guys just came in and saw me cutting wood. I am currently... Let me grab a cigarette first before I go on story time. So, story time is, I'm extremely tall. I'm like 7'5", in case you guys haven't been able to tell so far. This table saw, the Delta T36725, I think, something like that. That comes in at 37 inches tall. So when I got that table saw, I built this outfeed table originally to match that table saw. Which, again, me being extremely tall, the average workbench is like 36, so bumping up to 37 was already a little too tall for me. I built 2 other workbenches inside of my shop. These are at 34.5. They're better. I actually think I prefer like a 32. I think 32 is probably a really comfortable height. I can cross-cut full sheets of plywood on it, but too late to go and drop those down. I'm not going that far. So instead of dropping everything down to 32, I'm bringing this one down to 34, this one down to 34, and while I'm doing that, I'm also adding in a router table over here in this wing, and then I'm just going to do an additional wing over here on the left. I'm going to edge band it in walnut, and then I'm going to be building a full cabinet and cart system for the table saw, because again, the wheels on this table saw kind of suck. I'm going to try to enclose the motor just a little bit, probably add a 4-inch dust port down there, kind of like a Bittner built, I think. And that's kind of going to be the game plan for this. And then if you guys want to know, all this was kind of coaxed along because I'm getting ready to build 10 interior doors for a client. And I was like, well, I want a better router table before I do that job. So in that process of wanting a router table, I wanted to put it inside my table saw, which led me to this whole entire process, essentially. It's kind of a large series of snowballing, starting from one thing and kind of ping pong from one project to the next. But I am happier. The bench is, again, lower. It works better for me. So I know the table saw itself, once it's not up at my belly button, will be better for me, safer, easier for me to reach across and, cut and do my thing. So it's going to work out better. It's just the crunch time. I love building projects and doing something like this. I'm going to make it pretty cool. It's just the having to do it on a crunch. Because again, I still do have 10 interior doors that I need to batch out, but I have like a week and a half to do it, so I think I have plenty of time. I'm picking up all the ash tomorrow. I'm hoping that this is done, middle tonight, tomorrow ish, at least functional on wheels. The finishing touches can always come after the project. I just want the router table in, have it on wheels, have it lower to work with the table saw. I will need to lower my planer so I can actually use it for in feed and out feed because it's too tall. Well, it's going to be too tall when I drop the table saw. Again, that little domino, that snowball kind of kept rolling downhill. But again, it's going to be better overall when everything's done. So it's going to be worth it. I am tired. I've been up since like 5 o'clock this morning. Getting this bench done. I had to go look at another job. Had to go grab materials for a different project. And then I'm grabbing all the wood for these doors tomorrow. Also, if you guys have ever wondered a good wood for interior doors, I typically go poplar. This client wanted the doors that have a nice solid fill. We didn't want to quite go as far as like white oak or anything. He's planning to stain them, so we're going to go with ash. So we're going to be picking up a bunch of ash tomorrow, and I might live stream the milling. I think that would be something I can live stream because I don't need, 5 hours of milling on my YouTube channel. So I think for either tomorrow or Sunday, I'll probably hang out in the shop and mill all the material. And then go into Monday, Tuesday, start cutting everything to final size and setting up the router table to run the bit and everything else. I am in need of a nap. Let me check my phone though as far as my battery. And I think I got a few messages. All right, cool. Whew. I do need to take a quick leak, so I'm gonna do that. By then my cigarette will be about done. And then we're gonna set up and get to the jointer. Also, I'm not sure again if you guys who are watching now, if you guys are followers of my channel. Just gonna do a quick pan around my shop. Those are some custom Jorbanet units. They're essentially pull-out drawers for your upper cabinets. And I use wooden full extension drawer slides instead of metal slides. These are all wooden drawer slides. And it just gives you access to the back of your cabinet that typically you wouldn't have access to. That's all made out of scraps, 1/2-inch OSB, mahogany scraps. All the mahogany that I use on that was I built a door for a client, and those were like test door jamb pieces and test dado pieces that I resawed plain down. I made all the handles and everything else from scraps. The OSB that was there, those are all cut-offs because I recently hung my ceiling and my walls, well, most of them. And when I was hanging them, that whole cabinet bank was all OSB scraps, the carcasses anyway. The Jorbanet units are just scrap 1/2-inch plywood. Those doors, if you guys haven't seen them, they're made of 2x10 pine resawn. And then I use a piece of 3/4-inch plywood to make the panels. I put marker boards on the front side, and they all have 1/2-inch OSB French cleats. And I use them to hang my clamps. There's a scrap wood bin on the bottom. So also, if you guys have ever wondered if 1/2-inch OSB works for French cleats, definitely does. This door has been up for at least a year and a half now, I think. And those clamps have been hanging on it since the beginning. So, I have my crosscut sled on the front side. I have drills, jigsaw, Hansel tray, pencil holder, marker holder, rags, paper towels, all that's hanging on these doors. So it gave me a ton of storage space as well as functionality because the front side of my shop was getting cold. Didn't want to heat that back room because I wasn't even using that at that time. So the door served that purpose. And then another thing, this miter saw was one of, I think, the third build on my channel, probably about a year and a half ago. And I added the ability to expand the wings. I recently came back and did it with the knobs. At first you just pulled it out, but I added knobs and a T-track here, so you can actually, well, not added a T-track, I just routed in a T-track into the plywood. A lot of things inside of my shop, instead of buying T-track or hardware, I like to make the stuff myself. Well, I could have made knobs. I guess I didn't go that far. But routed in the T-track, so this expands, I think, out to about 71 inches for support anyway, or 71 inches for a stop block, because I have the Ron Paulk style flip stop on the miter saw, so you can, run your material all the way across your fence without having to impede. Whenever you need it, it just flips down, and this slides all the way down to the extension, so you get 71 inches of a stop block capability, because all you gotta do is anything in between, you just lock this down. And once you lock down your wings, this isn't going anywhere. And if you ever need more stability, I still have the April Wilkerson little floating support arm. I need to adjust that bolt in there. But it folds up and gets right beneath the wing, right about the center point, to keep it from racking. I started yapping and forgot I had to take a piss and let my cigarette go out. And then up front, I just have my two Paulk style benches. This one, though, actually is something kind of worth talking about. Again, I love YouTube because it definitely inspired me to start making YouTube videos. But I love a lot of the creators that are on YouTube. They definitely inspired me to come up with cool ideas. Ron Paulk came up with the Paulk style bench. It's essentially an MFT style bench that has all the cubbies and everything else in there. This originally was the one I took with me on my job sites. So I didn't want something super big, but I wanted to be able to make it expandable. So the wings themselves slide out like an additional 2 feet on both sides. So it goes from like a 5-foot bench to, I think, about 7.5 once they both are fully extended. So that was pretty cool. And then another thing I added, both of these benches have the ability, wrong one, to raise and lower with a jack. So even though the other bench was already taller than these, I always had the ability to raise this one up to meet the other bench. It was just, again, me being extremely tall. You ideally want your workbench to be about at your waist. The table saw was about up here at my belly button, so getting it down to about here is better. But for me, the top of my waist is probably like another inch lower. So 32 inches actually works better for me. But at 34.5, it's a lot better than 37.25 or whatever that was sitting at first. So that's the reason why I'm dropping stuff down inside of my shop. I know a taller woodworker will probably come in here and be a little thrown off. But for me, this is what's going to work. Other two things I want to show you guys before we get back into the actual progress of the project at hand is my drill press table. Fairly simple, just a couple of drawers, T-track and everything else routed into the top, drawers on the bottom. The one thing I thought was pretty cool though is I added toggle clamps at the bottom. This whole cabinet actually slides completely off. I can set it on the ground and essentially allows me to lower my drill press, all the way down. Because this isn't like a smaller drill press that would mount on the cabinet. This is a full floor standing drill press that I put on a cart, and then the cart is holding the cabinet, and the cabinet just kind of slides on, then slides back and locks in with these toggles. So that was pretty cool. You know, again, I use my drill press not as much as I want to. The bandsaw, I'm almost done nothing to it. I did build a bandsaw fence, actually. That was pretty cool. I built a wooden bandsaw fence, and I added a scale and everything else to it. Works pretty good. Square. I plan to add some holes in here so I can actually add a larger auxiliary fence with T-track and everything else. And then we go to my material bench. This is essentially a workbench that doubles as a material cart. Essentially, you have a flat surface all the way across the top. It's covered with junk right now, but it has bench stock holes along the top and along the side. So I can actually use it for edge banding. I can clamp full sheets of plywood up here, a door, route hinges, etc. Because I do have a flat surface here, as well as more storage up here. A pegboard face going all the way across. And then down here on the ends, this is a 6 foot long bench. I have various cubbies. The top cubby is a full 6 foot. The next cubby is, I think, 36 and 36. And the bottom one, I think, is 2 foot and 4 foot. It has dividers at various sections. So I have a bunch of scraps in there. And then on the very back, it's 4 foot tall. So I can actually slide full sheets of plywood in there. But I have a bunch of small offcuts in there. Oh, can't rotate the camera. Turn back. And I guess the last thingy in the shop would be my hand tool bench, which is currently covered by a bunch of stuff. But full large apron, sliding dead man down at the bottom. I plan to actually fill in those cabinets with drawers and stuff like that, but time. Tool well that's full of stuff, and pop-up bench dogs. The holes are currently filled with a bunch of sawdust, but overall, I think the shop has actually served me quite well. And then I have all the small amenities, being refrigerator, sink, sitting area, 3 recliners, which I think definitely is necessary. And then a full, well, not a full bathroom, but toilet. And then I have that whole room back there, which is 8 by 8. And once I get that dust collector hung up on the wall, that's gonna be my CNC 3D printer, probably lathe kind of situation. And then all this extra wood is probably gonna go outside inside of my tent versus cluttering up my shop like it's currently doing now. And then on this front side, this is where all my dad's car tools are. I built him a bank of cabinets. He's a Falcons fan, and that is where he stores all of his, ratchets, sockets, pulleys, clamps, etc. And then from there back is where my shop starts. Well, his shop that he lets me borrow. We'll say blessings. But yeah, let me take this leak. I think I rambled enough. I wasn't sure, again, if anybody in here actually knows my channel or seen any of my other content. That was just a quick little tour of some of the things I've added and kind of what I have going on in here. And what kind of led to, I guess, me having to do this now versus regular height carpenter, woodworker, never having to shorten this bench because 36 inches works fine for them. And again, it was fine for me, but when it came down to, like, if I'm cross-cutting a sheet of plywood, oh, my mic's right here. Hopefully you guys still can hear me. But when I'm, like, cross-cutting a sheet of plywood, I get, like, here. And when the bench was taller, it was, wasn't even up there. And even now, I still need a ladder because this whole bench is actually 48 all the way across. So I can cut all the way to here. It's a rear handle saw. We're almost getting it at 32 inches. I'm able to cut all the way across without an issue. But again, I'm probably just going to build me like a really cool step ladder or maybe make a folding step that comes out of one of these drawers down here or something. That way I can just kind of get a quick little, oh, I'm up here. Or I might add a lip all the way around the bench. Instead of like a toe kick, I have one that protrudes out that I can kind of step on. Just something to get me up just a little bit more so I can make my cross cuts. That might be something I might think into. Might be all the rage for all the short woodworkers around the world. A reverse toe kick on all the cabinets. Alright. Wash my hands. Now to the plane. First things first, we're going to unhook the joiner and slide it back into its location, which is behind that door. Oh, I saw that. Let me not forget. I saw one of these clamps. I think my cousin that came in earlier and slammed the door. Not my cousin. I think that was Bam. Or maybe I did. Either way. I'm probably going to add something to keep those from falling off. Because again, if you slam this door like 3 or 4 times, clamps will fall. So you don't want to open the door and be the unlucky guy with the clamp right there on this edge. But that's kind of something I always look out for because I would be that unlucky guy. But also, I don't slam or swing this door open because I know there's stuff on the other side. But I need to add safety stuff for other people. Nice and tight back up against the wall. This is also why I need to go ahead and I just ordered some longer 4-inch hose. So I don't want to have to slap my planer all the way back here in the room. I kind of have to for my hose to reach. But one nice thing I did put on top of this planer cart, there's like a little arm right here. So the hose kind of just locks into it. And just go ahead and connect that. Probably take it that way so I have some room to walk through. And then for you guys, we'll be starting with the thicker ones. Alright, that's it for the jointer and planer. Let's see if I can get the camera to do this any justice. Alright. Next thing I need to do is rip them to their proper widths, which is going to be, I guess, probably about 2 3/8. Some of them are almost there, so probably just a little under 2 3/8. That means my inserts on this side and that side are going to be just under 2 3/8. The current metal table looks like 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna have a little bit, pretty much if you guys, these holes, whatever you do, you want to make sure that it's at least as thick as this stamped inserts, because where the hole placement is already really close to the bottom. And this is only 1.5 inches thick, so by mine being about 2 3/8, my hole, one, I can actually make an oval shape hole to allow me to be able to adjust my tables up and down. I'm not going to do an oval. These are 5/16. I'm probably just going to drill a slightly bigger hole, which will allow me to adjust my tables. But yeah, I got to drill out all these holes underneath. I already grabbed some more hardware to replace all these so they can be a little bit longer. So now that we have the face frame material essentially done, the next step is to rip these to their final widths. And then from there, like for this side, I'm going to be using this thinner material. 2 of these put together is just under 15/16. So I can do a couple different things. I could 15/16. This whole thing is 27 1/16. So we can say that is 26 1/16 plus the 16. So, and it's 27 1/16 for like light. It's like a 30-second. So it's probably about 26 1/16 is what my overall width would need to be. As far as my panel needs to be 26 1/16, and then also my framing and everything else underneath needs to add up to 26 1/16 to give it to make it even out to fitting just snugly in here. And I need to do that math for the other side because this material is thicker. And I also need to go ahead and cut up the sheets of plywood, rip those before I actually break down the table saw. So what I'm going to do is rip these to their final widths, set these aside, and then I'm going to break down the plywood to the actual rough sizes, rip them down to their final dimensions now that I have the face frames done. And then that might be where I call it. I might cut things to proper lengths though. I might go ahead and cut all the torsion box material for the underneath side and maybe assemble one of the torsion boxes, and then my YouTube video can start with me assembling the other one. So what we might do is actually cut all the pieces we need for this side. We might actually go ahead and install this side. We have it's an hour 17 minutes in. I might have enough time to go ahead and cut and build this wing and install this wing. And then my video starts with this one done and me building the other one. Sounds like a plan to me. So let's start ripping stuff down. We're going for about 2 3/8. Let me set the table saw blade height. And then we're aiming for 2. actually, I think the best way for me to do this is to cut the frame. So I'm gonna miter one edge, butt it up against here, mark it, miter the other side, and then I know that this lengthwise is the same length as this. These can be a little bit longer if I wanted them to be, but I can always miter and butt or scribe it right here. So I'm actually gonna make the frame first, kind of tack this to, well, at least cut all the pieces for the frame, and then I can actually measure for what the inside needs to be. As far as at least the width of the plywood, anyway, I want to make sure I get that right. Because if the plywood's too small and this face frame is made, or if overall if it doesn't fit in here snug and it pinches, or if it's too loose and it pinches in my rails, my fence won't ride right. So I want to make sure that we end up with, again, the exact same size as these metal inserts. So let's swing the camera to the miter saw, and we're going to cut 45 and then bring it back to the table saw. So let's get it so you can see both. And then I can take this same piece, and what I just did right there, the rails protrude down beneath the table saw, well, the stamped aluminum, and she fits snugly in between the rail, and she's flat, she's not bowing or flexing. So that is the perfect cut for that piece. And what that tells me is that that inside measurement is the width that my plywood needs to be. Well, if this is a perfect 45. But let's go ahead and burn an inch. It looks like we have 26, well, 27 and an eighth heavy. So 26 and an eighth heavy. So that's what I need my plywood to be on the inside when I rip it. As far as the width or length, I think this is like 10 inches. But I mean, it comes further down here, so it really doesn't matter if it's longer than 10. I think I'm just going to cut these two side pieces to 10 inches. Probably set up some type of arbitrary stop block. Also, key thing. Whenever you're working with wood, hey, how you doing, boss man? Thanks for joining in. Whenever you're working with wood, if you see focus, if you see cracks or splits, you want to cut past that at least an inch or two, just to make sure that when you cut your piece, it's not split going into the piece you're keeping. That kind of happens when wood dries or whatever else. So this piece was sitting outside for a while before we milled it up. So again, the ends typically wick in moisture or release moisture faster, so they tend to crack. So if you see that on the end of your piece, try to remove it in your initial cuts. Now I need two 10-inch pieces. So I'm going to cut a 45 on both sides. And then I'm going to measure 10 inches. Let's grab any old scrap piece of wood. Let's line her up on 10 inches. I say that's it right there. I'm going to butt that to it. Bring my stop block. Lock that in. And then all I got to do is butt this to that piece. I have my 45 already on this side. Butt it up. And both of those pieces are perfect. So now we have the dimensions to kind of wrap this wing right here. I don't want to pre-assemble it, but I do want to kind of do a little mock-up. And then we can size the plywood to fit in it. And then essentially, again, this is 2 3/8. We have a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that's going to end up flush to the top. And then we're going to build a torsion box for everything else that's beneath that 3/4 of an inch. And then we'll give it a pretty round over, sand it, probably stain the plywood, and that'll be the actual insert for this side. That side is going to be a little bit bigger, and I'll be routing in Nazitok. Where's that at? Is that like Europe or like, is that Africa? Say good morning. What time is it now? It's like 6, 7 o'clock p.m. here. I'm in the U.S. And then, yeah, from my math, it looks like about 26 and 3/16. Yeah, 8th heavy. South Pole. Like Antarctica? Is that like Antarctica? North Pole's like Greenland and whatnot. Sadly enough, I'm American. I'm doing better at my world geography. But like the South Pole, that should be like Antarctica, right? Like what other continents are down there? Let me know if I'm right, because then I might look that up. Because I didn't really know. I failed in like research and whatnot. I didn't know there was a lot of people in Antarctica. Interesting to know. So, 26 and the 8th is the magic number for the inside piece here. And I'm going to get that piece from an offcut of this first rip that we did at 27 inches. And I'm going to get that offcut by cutting my base piece, which is 54 and a half inches. That's going to have to be done with the circular saw. So 54 and a half. Fifty-four and a half. How long is that track saw, guys? Is that long enough to cut this? Oh, let me set the depth first. There we go. Actually, this is going to end up needing to be shorter because I'm going to have my side panels run the full length, but it doesn't matter. I'll trim this again later. This is going to end up being the base for the entire table saw situation. This piece here is going to be able to do that wing and this side because it only needs to be, that one needs to be like 25. This one needs to be less than 10. This one's going to need to be 9 and 9/16. Let me check this one as well. And yeah, 9 and 9/16. So I'll set the table saw up to 9 and 9/16. Actually, I'll set the table saw up to probably a little over 25 because it'll be easier to rip a bigger piece first. Cut that piece off, then I'll set it to like 9 and 9/16. Cut my other piece off, and then I'll essentially have everything I need to do my little face frame box. These are all of those pieces. This side is going to need to be roughly 26 and a half minus the end piece. So I'm going to set it to 26 and a half. Always verify which one is your square edge. Alright, that's that side. Now I kind of have one chance to nail this 9 and 9/16 perfectly. So I'm actually going to use my tape measure. And if I did math right, Ooh, it looks like I did math right. Oh, I haven't cut this to length yet. I was about to say, what happened? Woo! Almost freaked out. Oh, God. This needs to be 26 and a little bit more than an eighth. I was about to say, why didn't my corners meet up? But yeah, these are good. And now the last step is to cut this to the proper length. That pencil isn't going to get there. Alright, trim that on the miter saw, and then we should have everything we need, well, minus the actual torsion box section in here, which is just going to be a couple pieces of plywood that are ripped to 1.5 inches. So I'll take some scrap plywood, rip it to 1.5 inches, make a torsion box that'll go in here, and then this will just end up getting wrapped around it, which will make it look nice and pretty on the outside. Drill all my oversized holes to actually mount it to the side of the wing, get it nice and level, and we have a solid insert. And what this is going to allow me to do is when I build my cabinet for underneath, one, it gives me something solid to actually attach to. And again, mainly on that side, this side doesn't really overhang much, but whenever I run full sheets of plywood in it, or like heavy stacks of wood, or stack 22x4s on that side or whatever else, it has a tendency to give. So with a full cabinet that actually runs all the way underneath to support the router table and everything else, it'll keep it solid. It'll keep the bolts from being able to come loose. I also went and grabbed a bunch of lock nuts, so that way I don't have to worry about anything rattling loose over time. So we're gonna get all this tightened up. But 1.5 inches. So I need to take some 1.5 inch rips. I got a couple scrap pieces of plywood I'll use for that, and then this needs to get trimmed at the miter saw. Hopefully I don't cut it too short. See how I did. And yes, that will do. And then, yeah, I was thinking about, pen nailing it to the plywood, gluing it that way. But I think if I go ahead and build the torsion box on the inside, then I can drive screws or pen nails or staples from the inside of here into this. And I think that will work better. And then it's just about transferring all the mounting holes onto this, which I can probably just grab the wing, line them up, and transfer the holes that way. Oh. All right. Next step is to rip a couple pieces of plywood to 1.5 inches. How long is this piece? I want to make sure it's long enough to actually run The full length is just 29. I can get 3/6, 7.5, so I can get 5 strips out of this. That one I'm gonna need 1, 2, and then that one I'm gonna need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 over there. So I need another piece of plywood that's at least 29 inches. This one. This one is 26. That's not gonna be long enough. I'll rip it out once I get to that wing over there. This is for the live stream, so I'm gonna rip these pieces out of that one. I probably could make that one work for this one by running the pieces this way first, because this is like 26 and 3/16. So I rip both of these to 1.5 inches. And how long is this? Really, I probably can get away with just these two. So that'll be 5. Yeah, I don't even need this piece. I'll just rip those to 1.5 inches. And that will give me all the framing I need for the underside. And now what I need to do is cut to the fit, front to back. And then, I don't know, 1, 2. I really only need to throw 3 in here. It's a really small wing, but I'll throw 4 in here. And I was going to use pocket screws, but considering that this is 1.5 inches, I can just use 2-inch screws and they won't blow through the face. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Just pre-drill a couple holes through here. Maybe make sure they don't line up with any of these holes. But yeah. So the step here is to cut these two to the exact same length as this panel. And what I'm going to do is use my stop block and miter saw to my benefit. I'm just going to come over here, loosen my stop block. Oh, I just made a cut. And there we go. Now I do need to know how long these in-between pieces need to be. So we're just going to pull out my tape. And 8 1/8. Whoops, I did make one mistake. Silly me. I was supposed to use all the ones that were only 26 for this one. I used one of the, wait, did I? Okay, yeah, I did. I used one of the horizontal grain pieces when I was supposed to use all these verticals. I'll just have to rip another piece. But 8 1/8, I'm going to make sure I take all these out of this vertical grain piece. Eight 1/8. That's a really short piece, so I'm going to throw a scrap here. Let me line up my miter saw. Let's call it right there. And I need 4 pieces. All right, now we just nail these together. if math is math, this should fit perfectly on this rectangle. And they do. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and pin this together, use a little bit of glue, grab some 2-inch screws. Once I have my frame assembled, I can attach that frame directly to this piece of plywood, and then I can come back, and again, the overall height and everything else works out. So when I wrap it with the walnut, everything will be exactly what we want it to be. We might not get to the install in this live stream, but we might be able to build this wing, sand it and stuff, and then I'll probably put a finish on it and get it installed, later. You guys will probably, next time you guys see me, the wing should be installed, and I should be, probably milling all the wood for the doors. Unless I screw something up. Don't rule that out. I oversleep, I get distracted. A beautiful woman woodworker comes out of nowhere. Oh, it just reconnected. My phone about to die and I wasn't paying attention. Okay, I got 30%. Okay, yeah, I got 30%. We should have enough time to do this. Staple gun. This time I'm not going to smoke a cigarette. I'm going to light a marijuana cigarette. Let me grab some glue. And then let me grab those screws. Where are the 2-inch screws? Oh. I think that's done way over there. I don't feel like getting back up. My knees hurt. These are 1.5 inches, so it gotta be those over there. Oh. 2-inch screws. Got my drill. Let me get a small drill bit. Let's see, this is 26. 13 is the middle. Half of 13 is 6.5. It's like 8 1/4. All right. Part of what makes a torsion box work is the framing and everything else underneath. Same thing that like a deck. A deck is essentially a torsion box. Enough rigid structures going this way. Except, with deck framing, you're dealing with 2x10s, 2x12s that aren't perfectly straight. These are, again, straight, ripped on the table saw. They're perfectly parallel. So by having a rigid, flat structure underneath helps lock the piece up top, the decking, the plywood, the workbench, keeps it nice and flat. So the first step is to assemble a perfectly flat torsion box frame and then attach it to this piece of plywood, and then we'll wrap it with our face frame. In this case, glue and staples are your friend, but you don't need to make a ton of mess. I knocked my blood out my mouth. I had the air turned the wrong way. That was almost disrespectful. Ugh. And what I should have done was stand it up. So that when I'm shooting down, I'm actually bearing down on something. Don't give it a chance to recoil. Two jams in a row. Huh. This gun actually fires really good. Maybe it's the second clip of nails in there. Staples. Again, another jam. What the fuck? There we go. I don't know what caused that. I'm sure she jammed like 4 nails in, 4 staples in a row. That's not like her. Beautiful. Alright, now this plus a little bit of glue will make this perfectly flat. Where are my clamps? They're right there. Whew. Let me clip that. Whew. There we go. She's flush all the way around. Now I can drive in all of the screws. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining in. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining in. Alright, so a little bit of careful planning and assembly, but we have a perfectly flat and square extension for the table saw. And it's going to fit my walnut wrappings. And I think that'll make a really pretty insert for this side. This one again is pretty small. The other side is going to be a little bit bigger, so I'll probably come back and use like some pin nails instead of screws at first. Kind of tack it all down, then come back with the screws. Oh, actually, let me put these back up there. We are looking at exactly 27 and a 16. This is exactly what we wanted for our actual wing overall dimensions. I think we're cooking with gas. And then these are 7/16. So I can't use 1.5 inches, but I probably can use 1-inch screws. And essentially they'll get glued along the face lined up here on the inside. And then I'm going to drive in my 1-inch screws all the way around. I kind of do want to hit this with the sander. And there's like a staple or two that's sticking up just a little bit. So I kind of want to tap that down. And then there's just like a ever so slight lip right here. So I kind of just want to knock those down, hit this with the sander overall. And then I can go ahead into assembling the face frame piece. And then we'll have a completed wing insert for right here, which will give me, again, a way to attach my actual base unit and cabinet carcass underneath. And then again, the one for the other side is going to be bigger, and it's going to have my router table insert right there. And I will need to round over this edge too, just to make sure that where it interfaces with the cast iron, it's a nice and smooth transition. I don't want anything getting caught right there. Well, cool. Let me grab a hammer. Let me check my foam percentage. Okay, we should have enough juice to finish this. Where did I put my 1-inch screws? Those are 2s. Where did I last use my 1? It was up here. Just bought them. I used them when I lowered the bench. Okay, well, before that, I'm gonna see them in a second. Let me tap in these nails, sand this just a little bit. I want to make sure that nothing is proud of the surface. Let me get some 120 grit sandpaper. Alright, yeah. All I need is those screws, which I put them in a responsible place. These are 1.5 inches. Oh, they're right here. Alright. Let's see, the 1-inch screw. Well, countersink can go in there just a little bit. Alright, I'm gonna throw some glue on this, even though I probably don't need to, but for the sake of everything staying together and staying flat. And flush it up with the back. Make sure I got just a fingernail right there. I still might need to put some pin nails along the top side, that top edge. It's not bad, but it didn't suck in up here as much as I wanted to, so I might still throw a pin nail on each one of the corners. And I'm going to throw some 18 gauge nails coming from the sides because you won't actually see those. And then I'll go ahead and screw this in all along here. Let me grab the 18 gauge. And this will be how you make a pretty torsion box style table saw wing. Definitely would say a little over embellished, more than what you would need for, you know, your table saw wing, but I think she will do. We'll sand it up a little bit, hit it with a round over. And then this will be good to get installed. Well, stain it too. But then this will be good to get installed right here inside the wing. And then let's do a test fit and see how close we got. Let's see if this will fit in between the rails right here. Oh, it's hitting the switch down there. I wish I could actually get you guys over here while I'm holding it. But yes, she fits. She's actually the exact same size as the existing. So that's beautiful. That was a bit of a pain. Now the hope is I can recreate that success one more time on a much bigger wing and then route in and cut out for my router table. So this is only maybe like a quarter of the project. The next portion will be the larger wing, the mobile base, the wheels and everything else. And then by the end of it, this table saw will be the heights of everything else inside of the shop. It was a long process to get here today. I am extremely happy for everybody who actually hung around and watched the entire process. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. If you guys are new to the channel, I greatly appreciate it. Definitely check out some of my other content. This video probably will not be hitting my channel for at least like another month or two. I think we have the miter saw cart coming up next. I built a section of bookshelves, a couple other projects before we actually delve into what we're tackling right here. So again, if you guys have enjoyed, please smash that like button, leave me a comment, subscribe, check out my channel, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.